Please note, this episode is for adult audiences. It contains descriptions of consensual sexual acts and desires.
Well, guys, welcome. As usual, it's your girl, Amara la Negra, and you're listening to Exactly Amara, a production of iHeart. By the way, let me tell you something, because I know you can already hear it in my voice. I am a little bit under the weather. All this traveling, around the world. And when I finally came here to Miami, como que my body got in shock. And I don't know, I sound a little bit like, como que deep. Remember to subscribe to my podcast, show me some love, some support, and rate us. Give us those 5 stars that we well deserve, because we always give you the best of us, well, the best of me. Don't forget, go to the YouTube channel and write Exactly Amara on the search bar so that you can, check out our shows. Today I wanted to do como que Exactly Amara a little bit more spicy, como a little bit more saucy, more sexy, more freaky, more open-minded, more como que let's explore. Let's go into this episode today with an open mind, because today not only do I have my girl Arlene. Arlene, mami, how are you?
I'm ready, Amara. I got 2 coffees in. I'm ready for this conversation.
Oh my God.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad you picked me versus Alex.
You know what? I really felt that you needed to be part of this conversation, because you're always so sweet and cute and, just well put together, that I always feel like, where is the freaking Arlene? Where is the sexy sexual part of you? She's want to know how open you are mentally when it comes to today's topic. And we also have an amazing guest. Mira, I really wish that Alex was here, but we're going to tell him all about it later, because he's going to feel so bad he missed this episode. But Arlene, present, who do we have today?
Well, this is a conversation that you've been very curious about. And we thought, why not bring in an expert to really talk us through, give us an understanding on this subject. We have someone coming in to discuss BDSM, to educate us a little bit on this spicy topic. Our guest is a professional dominatrix. She has over 20 years experience. She has a PhD in clinical psychology.
Yeah, she's smart.
An MA. Yeah, she's smart, Amara.
What?
She has an MA in counseling psychology. She's also a kink-centered sexologist and a kink life coach. This is the one where I'm going to have to pick her brain a little bit, because I'm interested in this kink-centered sexologist. And she's also the founder of the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy. Mistress Damiana, welcome to Exactly Amara.
Wow.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I am so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Damiana. Oh my God, I love that name, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, so here in Exactly Amara, I have always been very sexually open. I'm always very curious. I say all the things that everybody thinks about, but no one has the guts to say out loud. All those things that I'm always somewhat preaching about, being sexually open and not so judgmental, and exploring your body, exploring your sexuality. I've spoken about so many other different things that to me is like, that's nothing. But there's real different levels to this. There's like, even now listening to, all the things you've actually studied, like this is a profession. It's not just only the sexual part of it, the fun part of it, but this is really a profession. First of all, for those that may not know, like myself, because I'm not going to lie, what exactly does BDSM stand for?
So BDSM is an acronym.
Okay.
And it stands for bondage and discipline, sadism and masochism. And then you take the 2 middle initials, and that stands for dominance and submission.
Okay.
So it's like an acronym within an acronym.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell me, what inspired you? What motivated you? How did you get started? Did you just wake up one day and be like, you know what? Boom, I want to do this. Or, you were curious, you worked your way into it, you saw something. How did you get into this?
Mm-hmm. So I got into this by accident. I was in my graduate program, in my master's program, going for the counseling psychology degree. And one of the assignments in my program that my teacher gave me was pick a disorder out of the DSM-4. So have you heard of the DSM? It's the Diagnostic Statistical Manual Mental Disorders, and all the psychologists go by that. Whatever mental disorder anyone is diagnosed with, it's in that book. So I picked sexual masochism because I thought this sounds like a fun topic, and all the other disorders sound really depressing. So
Okay.
that was the one that sounded fun to me, and I'd always been curious about it anyway, and so I started studying it. And my sister at the time had a quote unquote slave who was picking up her mail, getting groceries, things like that, just kind of like an errand boy that she was calling her slave. I thought, okay, I'm going to interview him. He's into this kinky stuff. I'm going to interview. And when I interviewed him, it was so fascinating learning about what makes a submissive tick. That's how I got into it. I started interviewing him. I started playing with him. I started playing with him by accident.
When you mean playing with him, what exactly does playing with him mean?
Okay.
With that submissive
yes.
Kink that you're referring to?
Uh-huh. I'm going to tell you about how I accidentally started playing with him, okay? And then I'll get into like what play means. My sister and I were living together at the time. And she said, okay, my slave's going to come over and help us pack. And this was a guy that I had interviewed before, but I hadn't ever met him.
Okay.
So when he came to help us pack, I came home. She said, just come home. She said, put on a pair of high heels and just be bossy. I was like, all right, I can do that. So I come home and here he is already. He's a guy in his panties, only wearing women's panties, packing boxes for us in our living room, right? And this is the first time I'd ever seen anything like this. And I was like, okay. And my I was kind of amused on the inside. I was feeling kind of amused, but I didn't talk to him. And then at one point he said to my sister, Miss, may I use the bathroom? And she says, go ahead, but you have to sit like a girl on the toilet. So he went into the bathroom and he left the door cracked open a couple inches so I could see him sitting on the toilet, right? And then I walked over there and I pushed the door wide open and I said, you don't get any privacy. And he looked at me really scared, like, oh, this is the first thing I ever said to him. And so this is what happened that day. I didn't say anything else to him the whole rest of the day, but the next day he contacted me and he said, and because we had already been on the phone and stuff, he said, you know what? You're not just a psychologist. I think you're a dominatrix too. I think you have it in you. Would you be interested in playing with me? And by playing with him, specifically him, he was a domestic slave. Or domestic submissive, And so he was into cleaning my house. I had a studio apartment at the time. But he paid me $50 to clean my entire apartment, the whole like scrubbing my toilet and the tub and my whole place. And I would just boss him around, tell him, you missed a spot right there. You missed a spot right there on the floor. And then I would take an implement from my kitchen, like a wooden spoon or something, and spank him on the ass with it, stuff like that. So punishments, he would get punishments for getting stuff wrong, and so that's a part of the discipline.
There's different levels to this. Everybody's level of kinkiness or BDSM may be different. It may not all be to that extent. Some may like it a little bit more intense than others.
Exactly.
And for example, just give a couple of examples of different levels of BDSM. Because I know that there's some that like to wear the latex, some like the bondage, some like to just wear the panties, some like, give us some examples of the category.
I've coined the term called kink sexuality, like one word, kink sexuality. You know how like homosexuality, heterosexuality is one word. I've coined the term. It's not like official yet, but I'm trying to get it out there because I believe that people are born kinky. Like it's just your sexual orientation, so like you were saying, Amara, that there's people, you're curious about people who are very, very kinky versus very, very, maybe they're just curious or something like that. So if you look at it like on a spectrum, very, very kinky or like 100% kinky is over here on this end. And then very vanilla is over on this end. And vanilla would be something like you like missionary sex. You don't like getting freaky at all. You just like to, traditional sex.
Because I love me some missionary. Hold up. Some missionary can be very, very nice.
So, like somebody like you, Amara, might be like right in the middle, right? You might be right 50%. You could be like, I'm down for exploring kink. I'm down for exploring vanilla. I'm open either way. That would be something like in the vanilla world called bisexuality. You're not all the way over to homosexuality. You're not all the way over to hetero. You're in the middle. You know what I mean? It's like a spectrum, just like that.
I think it's important to also be with a partner. Personally, with all due respect for everybody who's into orgies and, whatever it is, threesomes. I've never had one. It's personally not my thing per se, but I've never had one. I don't know. But I do like to explore with that one person I'm with. With this one person I'm with, I'm willing to try everything. Throw me from one side of the room to the other, spank me this, that. You want to, I don't know, whatever. I'm with it. Because it's just you and me, and I feel comfortable enough that it stays between us. It's not like a whole bunch of people. And then obviously as a public figure, you kind of also have to be a little bit more,
discreet.
But I do think that you should be sexually open, not be afraid. If you have it in your mind and the curiosity is there, why not explore it? Don't take that as if you have an issue wait. There's some things that I might be like, okay, well, maybe we have to discuss this. But I still do think that you should be open enough to trying stuff. I told my mom, because my mom is my best friend, and I tell her everything. And I told my mom, when I'm having sex, I like to get slapped. And she's like, in your face? I'm like, yeah, slap me, spit in my face, choke me. And, she was like, you have problems. Like, this is not normal. Da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. When you're in your sexual moment, you kind of como que, when you're done, sometimes I'd be like, what the hell was that? That was too much. But in the moment, you're just having fun.
Exactly. Oh, in the moment, you're right. You're absolutely right. So when I go into scenes, I call them BDSM scenes. When we're in a scene, it's like for example, a very common role play would be I'm mistress, and then my submissive is my slave. That's the most common dynamic, right? There could be something also, a different dynamic would be like teacher and student, or do
you ever get the mom,
nurse and patient? Yes, I've done mom, and all these role plays. I'm always the dominant role, right?
Right.
And so when in a scene, any scene, mistress, slave, mommy, son, whatever, you're in the scene and it's real. It feels so real. It feels like you're in the moment. Everything's so hot and you're open. You're more open during a scene than any other time when you're outside of it, because you're in that, your adrenaline and the endorphins and all the serotonin, all your different neurochemicals are firing. So it feels very exciting.
When does the scene stop? Because, for example, for you, because you're the dominant, you know when it's over, like, boom, it's done. For those that may be the slave or maybe on the other side, do they sometimes have an issue cutting it off or disconnecting, or like?
They don't have to worry about it. The dominant is in control of everything. The dominant begins the scene, the dominant closes the scene. It's very important for the dom to close the scene. Like at the end of it. So the scene is similar to like a vanilla sex session where, there's the foreplay, right? There's foreplay. So it kind of warms it up. And then you get up into the peak sexual part where it's very, very exciting, and then it kind of like wanes down, right? You get into the cuddling, you get into all that. So we have terms for all of that. We pre-scene negotiation, we talk, we warm up, we get to know each other. And then scene starts. Like the dom says, okay, we're in role now. When we enter the other room, role begins. So role begins, and then we go through the whole scene, and then like whatever intense stuff we want to do in the middle, then we wane down, and then it lightens up, and then at the end, I say to my slave, there could be an orgasm or something like that. There could be. There doesn't have to be. But at the end of the scene, you were such a good slave for me. You took so much pain for me. You did, I would love to train you again. You did a good job, good slave. So that kind of closes the scene, You don't want to beat somebody and just leave it like that. that would be not a good way to end. You never want to end it like in a heightened part like that. It's not good. It's not good mentally.
Bring it down. Have you ever been a slave yourself?
So when I was training to be a dominatrix, I had 2 mentors. They were famous and legendary in LA. Mistress Sabrina Belladonna and Mistress Ilsa Strix. So I went through a whole training program with them for about 1.5 years. And during that time, I said, I want to know what it feels like to be a slave in a session. And so I went to one of my mentors, Mistress Ilsa, and I said, I want you to do everything to me. Treat me like a slave. Beat me, whip me, put me in bondage. I want to feel it, So
you can understand what you're making the other person feel. And how was the experience for you personally?
So it was a 2-hour scene. And she did stuff to me like she wanted to treat me like a slave, but for me, it wasn't really a turn on. So I realized that I wasn't a submissive. I am not a submissive. I could bottom, I don't bottom very often, but what I loved about it was being flogged. And, that was the part I loved the most, was being flogged. I was put in heavy bond. Flog. So there's these things called floggers where there's there's a handle and then there's a bunch of suede tails. Yeah. And it's, it could be, it could, if you did it softly, it could feel like a massage. But no,
you gotta beat it. I've done it.
Yeah, good. You don't.
Oh my God. Am I getting to know another part of me? What is happening?
Okay. Did you know it was flogging at the time, Amara?
See, a lot of us, I'm sure you've done things that you don't know the actual term of it. And you might be closer into this than you actually know. Mm-hmm. So there you go. So the flogging.
Yeah, the flogging felt amazing to me because it was like, she did it at the right pace. She warmed me up, did it slowly, because you have to do it correctly. There's a technique. So people can't just pick up a flogger and start beating their partner. No. You can't just go hard from the beginning. That's incorrect technique. Okay. So you got to warm it up, warm up the body, warm up the skin. You bring the blood to the surface of the skin. It's usually like on the back, on the ass. You could flog lightly on the front, but lightly. So on my back, I was flogged she got to a point where she flogged me pretty hard. Again, working it up until we got to the point where I was producing endorphins, right? And when you produce endorphins, it starts feeling really good. You start wanting it. You start wanting more. And so she flogged me to the point where I had bruises on my back for over a week.
Oh, wow.
And
look at that.
It was nice. It was like, oh, look, I got flogged.
Has anybody ever pegged?
I don't know what pegging is.
Pegging goes on all the time in our world. All the time.
Teach Arlene what pegging is. I've only done it once.
What is pegging?
But it was very empowering. Well, this person requested it. I'm not necessarily like, oh yeah, let me go peg you. No, he requested it and I was like, sure. I'd rather you to ask me than ask somebody else. So I'll try it. It was very empowering because I had never done it, and seeing that I was pleasuring this, this person. He wasn't my partner at the time. Afterwards, I did, because I'm telling you, when you're in the moment, it's like, yeah. But when you're done, that's when you kind of like, you can't say you don't like something till you've done it. I tried it. It's not really my thing, but I did it. I can say, check, done that. So, Arlene, I don't know if you want to try this, but just check it out.
Well, let's see. What is it?
Okay. So pegging is a term that came up. I mean, when I first started, like I said, I've been a dominatrix. I've been a professional for 24 years now, 24 years. And so when I first started in the profession, it wasn't called pegging. It was called anal play, strap-on play. They turned it into pegging somehow, somewhere along the line. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know when, 10 years ago. Who knows? But that's the term now that they use. So Arlene, you know what strap-on play with that?
I know about the strap-ons. Yes.
Yeah. So
in my 20s, I was more curious about that. Now that I'm getting older, I'm like, I don't know if I can physically handle it. But in my 20s, I was curious.
But it's not a strap-on. Yeah,
it's for women to give.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I got that part. Yes.
Yeah. Can you imagine, telling your partner now, listen, I have this strap on I bought. I want to try it on you. Not
Let me
everybody's
text
open
him.
to
Let me
that.
find out. Just kidding. No, I'm kidding. I'm really curious about this dynamic about women getting into their own as far as this dominant role, because traditionally women weren't really allowed to explore their sexual feelings and desires. And so now, moving into this more dominant role, it can be feel very powerful. I want to explore that.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that all fits in?
In my dom journey, I call it a dom journey. So I grew up in LA, but I grew up in a very traditional Chinese household, right? So it was for my parents, what they wanted, and so all Chinese parents, when they come from the tradition, they want their children to be quiet and demure, especially if you're a girl, demure, quiet. And so they kind of trained me to be a very shy child because that was seen as this is quality. This is what you want. If you're boisterous and you're this and that, that doesn't seem polite or ladylike. Ladylike. And there's a Chinese term for it, ladylike, right? And so I was brought up like this, where I never spoke my feelings. I didn't speak my opinions. It just was like that. I held everything inside, but I held everything so bottled up that by the time I got to teenage years, I completely rebelled. And we don't have to get into that, but I was this really rebellious teenager. Okay. And then when I discovered being a dominatrix in my early adulthood, I was like, it felt really well. First of all, when I had a boyfriend, my first boyfriend, I was 16. I was very bossy and controlling, and it felt good to boss him around because I was always this dominant person inside, but I didn't have a place to express it. And so it feels very empowering to do that. Not only to use the implements, that feels very empowering too, or the strap on, it feels very empowering, but to use your voice and to order them around. Get on your knees in front of me, worship my feet, stuff like that. And it's healthy because that is what they want. That is what they crave. That's what they want that.
They do.
Yes. And so there's nothing wrong about it. It's healthy on both ends. You're expressing yourself on the dominant end. They are receiving what they need on the submissive end, and nobody's judging anybody.
My mom's always told me this because I've seen her my mom hasn't had a lot of partners or relationships, with me while I've been around, obviously, because my mom has that traditional mentality of I want to give my daughter a good example. I don't want to have a lot of men coming in and out. She's been very like that. But I've always seen that she's very bossy. And she's like, your paycheck goes here on the table. I pay this and I give you that. And I was like, Mom, they're going to leave you. Who wants to be with a woman like this? And my mom is like, when you're too submissive and you're too sweet and you're too nice, they take advantage of you and they don't like it. Those women that are a little bit more aggressive, I'm taking control. This is what's happening. They kind of do like it a little bit more to know that the woman is in control. Now, I have this question as well, whether it's been the sexual part of it or just the dominatrix part of it. Have you ever had a scene that when you finished, you felt bad or guilty or said, maybe I went too hard. Maybe I touched a feeling I didn't know this person had, or, maybe I said this too strongly. Have you ever had a moment like that?
Yes. So like, I run a dominatrix academy, right? So I talk about all of this stuff. Basically, I give them all of the knowledge so they have it up front. Before, when I was starting, I was kind of just feeling my way through the dark, really. I had the two mentors, yes, but I only took classes with them to learn how to do like the flogging and the bondage and the activity, right? The things the physical things. I wasn't taught, I didn't get the training on how to treat them mentally or psychologically. So early on in my early dom years, I would take somebody who said they wanted degradation. So this is a kink. So there's people out there who want to be degraded and humiliated. Okay. And so somebody would come to me and say, that maybe this is a sub that doesn't know how to, maybe they're kind of early. Maybe this sub that I'm bringing up in my example, maybe they're kind of new at it too. So they don't know how to express everything. So what happened was this person said, I want to be degraded. I want to be degraded, and I want you to humiliate me and just treat me really bad and just all of that. So I said, okay. And so here was the guy in front of me, and he took off his clothes, because the dom is always clothed in fetish clothing, and then the sub is always naked, usually. And so here he is naked in front of me, and I said stuff like, look at you, you're a fat slob. Who would want you? You're just, look at you, you're an ugly pig. I started saying things like that, very, very, these insults, right? And I started seeing him just kind of like go into this place during the scene of, it wasn't a turn on. I just saw him kind of shut down. And so I stopped the scene and I said, okay, let's do a timeout here. I know I'm saying something that isn't hitting your buttons. Tell me about that. He said, I don't want you to call me fat. He's like, that's a tender spot for me. And so I learned that you can't just generalize degradation. You can't just generalize, whatever you say. You have to ask in the beginning, okay, what turns you on? What words turn you on? What do you want? What do you want to hear in the scene? What makes you hot? What makes you hot during the scene? And you have to find out specifics. So when somebody says, maybe they're new and they're like, I have this fantasy of being degraded. Then you ask them, okay, in your fantasies, when you masturbate, whatever it is, what is the dominant calling you? What is she saying to you? Tell me what she's saying in your fantasies. So you have to find out. Before you get into the scene, you have to find out. So that's very, very important.
I'll tell you this much. I have learned so much today. I continue to be curious. I am glad to know that you make it in a space where one is a profession. You studied this. There's techniques that you can't just go out there and think that because you've seen a couple of porn videos that you know how to do this. There's people that actually studied this, and there's academies for this and all this stuff, and there's podcasts for this. So where is your podcast? Where can we listen to it? How can we follow you on social media? How can we get in contact with you? Give us all the details.
My podcast is called Light Workers Who Play in the Dark, because I see DOMs as light workers. When you're doing it the right way, you're a light worker. You bring light to the person that you're playing with. You heal them. Light workers are healers. So we play in the dark. We play in the dark parts where, people are afraid to talk about this stuff outside. It could be shameful stuff. It's shameful stuff. We're not seeing it as shameful, but this is the dark stuff.
Right.
So that's the name of my podcast. You can find everything on I have a links page called DamianaChi.com. And so on that links page, you can find my podcast. You can find my academy. My academy is called the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy. I wanted to mention also that I am doing an in-person event next month in April, and I'm going to be teaching a 3-day workshop. It's called the Dominatrix Archetype Workshop. It's April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. You can come to LA, and there's only 6 spots because I do give a lot of personal attention. So 6 spots for 6 women. I will have 6 submissives for you. So that is an opportunity to work with me in person. I also can work with you all over the world on the internet, because my academy, the Evolutionary Dominatrix Academy, is a 6-month full program. And I have students all over the world joining this.
Well, I'm definitely going to be posting some of this on my personal Instagram, because I know that there's going to be so many listeners ready to get all these details. This has been one of the most interesting episodes I've done, because we really touched topics that a lot of people, like I said before, are curious, but there's very few that are willing to talk about it openly in a way that they don't feel judged. And it's a learning experience for all of us. The world is a huge place. There's a lot of people that like different things. I don't think that we should judge them for. We have the right to have our own sexuality, try however it is that we want to. And I'm glad that there's people like yourself that are willing to make so many people comfortable in their space. Arlene, thank you so much for joining today. I'm so grateful as usual, because you also make me feel comfortable. And as another woman, you know, it's not, I don't have to feel awkward. It's like, well, we all think about it. We all have had our little bit of curiosity. So this has been pretty fun. I want to thank all of you guys for being part of Exactly Amara once again. And don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms at Amara La Negra ALN, Amara La Negra ALN, or at Exactly Amara on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. This has been a production of iHeart's My Cultura podcast network. I love you guys.